Chapter 1. I toss and turn in bed, watching that sleeping figure. Sophia Taylor. She is my wife and my whole world. The morning sunlight, filtering through the gap in the curtains, falls on her shoulder, tracing a gentle curve. We have been married for 3 years, but every time I look at her sleeping, I still feel a flutter in my chest. Her long hair was spread across the pillow, her breathing steady and quiet. I gently stroked her hair, afraid of waking her from her beautiful dream. Last night, she worked late again, saying there was an important illustration project that needed to be rushed. She is an illustrator with enviable talent, and I feel proud of her. The alarm went off. She frowned and slowly opened her eyes. Seeing me watching her, a faint smile lifted the corner of her mouth. "Ethan Johnson, are you spying on me while I sleep again?" Her voice still held sleepiness. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. Shouldn't I take the chance to look a few more times at the most beautiful view in the world? She lightly tapped me, smiled as she got up. "Stop teasing. Go wash up. I'll make you breakfast. This is our daily life, ordinary yet happy." I am an architectural designer who recently finished a major project and received considerable praise within the industry. And Sophie is a brilliantly talented illustrator. Although our lives are busy, they are fulfilling and beautiful. In the kitchen, her busy back in an apron gave me a reassuring sense of happiness. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, breathing in the faint scent of shampoo in her hair. "By the way, are you free next Saturday night? I have a college reunion and want to bring you along," she asked as she flipped the frying egg in the pan. "Of course I'm free. It's rare you take the initiative to bring me to a reunion," I answered with a smile. Sophie usually doesn't care much for social activities. She prefers staying at home to paint or read. She gently placed the fried egg on the plate, turned to me, and said, "Someone is very eager to meet you. A good friend from my university days. He just returned from abroad to start a business, and he's doing quite well now." "Oh, sounds like a big shot. What's his name? I should do some homework in advance," I said half-jokingly. "Lucas Parker." There was a subtle change in her voice, but I didn't notice it at the time. "He was one of my best friends at university. Later he went abroad, and we lost touch. He recently came back to develop his career here, and I heard I got married. He's really keen to meet you." "No problem. I actually wanted to meet your college friends anyway," I said as I took the breakfast she handed me, my heart full of anticipation. How naive I was back then. If I could go back to that moment, I would be on guard, maybe even refuse that seemingly ordinary invitation. But fate is like that. It always quietly plants the seeds of disaster when you are least prepared. Chapter 2. On Saturday night, we arrived at the venue for the gathering, an elegant restaurant in downtown New York. Sophie had clearly put effort into her appearance. Wearing a dark blue dress I rarely see her in, her hair specially styled. "You look especially beautiful tonight," I praised sincerely. She seemed a bit nervous, occasionally adjusting her dress or hair. "Really? It's just that I haven't seen old classmates in a long time, and I wanted to make you look good." There were already 7 or 8 people in the private dining room. When they saw us come in, a tall man immediately stood up and walked toward us. He was wearing a well-tailored suit, and his every move exuded confidence and success. "Sophie, long time no see." His voice was deep and strong, his gaze landing directly on my wife before turning to me as he extended his hand. "Hello, I'm Lucas Parker, Sophie's college classmate. Ethan Johnson, nice to meet you." I shook his hand and felt that his grip was somewhat firmer than usual. "Sophie often mentions you, says you're an excellent architect," he said with a smile, but his eyes held a hint of scrutiny. I was taken aback for a moment. "Really? This is the first time I've heard Sophie had a college classmate named Lucas Parker." The atmosphere suddenly turned a bit awkward. Sophie hurried to explain, "I mentioned it before. Maybe you forgot. Lucas Parker used to be the student council president in our department, and now he's founded his own tech company." "Oh, right, I remember now." I told a white lie to ease the mood. Lucas Parker showed us to our seats, deliberately arranging Sophie to sit next to him, while I sat on Sophie's other side. During the meal, he frequently talked with Sophie, mostly about memories from their college days. Although I sat beside them, I felt like an outsider. What made me even more uncomfortable was the look in his eyes when he looked at Sophie. It carried some kind of feeling I couldn't quite put into words. "Do you remember that time we stayed up late finishing the design? You were so tired you just fell asleep on the table, drooling at the corner of your mouth, Lucas Parker said with a smile, his tone affectionate. Sophie blushed and lightly hit him. Don't be ridiculous, I'm not drooling. That natural interaction between them made me feel a bit uncomfortable. I turned to Sophie and asked softly, You two used to be close? Just ordinary classmates. She answered a bit quickly, then looked down and took a sip of water. The party lasted until late at night, and I noticed Lucas Parker's gaze constantly following Sophie. Before leaving, he took Sophie's hand and said, Don't lose touch again, add me on WeChat. On the ride home, Sophie seemed in a very good mood, which made me even more uneasy. Are you and that Lucas Parker really just ordinary classmates? I asked tentatively. Sophie's expression went stiff for a moment, then she smiled at me. Of course, why? Are you jealous? He looks at you in a strange way, I said frankly. She shook her head. You're overthinking it. He's like that. He's warm to everyone. Besides, she took my hand. I'm a married woman now. What are you still worried about? I smiled and nodded, saying nothing more. But that night, a vague unease quietly took root in my heart. Maybe I was being suspicious. Maybe it was intuition. At the time, I didn't know that this unease would, in the days to come, slowly grow until it devoured our seemingly perfect marriage. Chapter 3. In the month after that party, Sophie began to show some subtle changes. She used to rarely wear makeup. Now she stepped out carefully made up every day. She used to work at home a lot, but now she goes out frequently, saying she needs to meet clients or attend some industry events. She hardly ever looked at her phone before, but now she picks it up and smiles from time to time. These changes are subtle but real, like snow quietly melting in spring, unexpectedly altering the whole landscape. One night, we were sitting on the sofa watching TV when Sophie's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, immediately stood up, and went out to the balcony to take the call. Through the glass door, I saw her talking on the phone, smiling unconsciously, her eyes glittering with a light I hadn't seen in a long time. When the call ended and she came back to me, I pretended not to care and asked, Who was that? Calling so late. Just a client, some revision notes. The draft is due tomorrow, she answered casually, without looking at me. I nodded and didn't ask any more. Early the next morning, she told me she had a girls' night and might be home late. I said okay and watched her dress more carefully than usual, spraying that bottle of perfume she said was for special occasions. That day, an unnamed irritability hovered over me. That evening, I was home alone and decided to tidy the wardrobe to distract myself. When I opened her wardrobe, a beautifully wrapped gift box caught my eye. Inside was an expensive silk scarf, worth several $100s. And beneath it a card that read, For the most beautiful you, looking forward to seeing you again. Signed S. This discovery left me unsettled. Who is S? Sophie never mentioned receiving such a gift. I put everything back where it belonged and pretended not to have noticed, but a seed of doubt had already been planted in my heart. That night, when Sophie returned, it was nearly midnight. She smelled faintly of alcohol and perfume, not the perfume she wears when she goes out. Did you enjoy the party? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. It was nice. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, so everyone had a lot to talk about. She answered while avoiding my gaze and walked into the bathroom. I lay on the bed, listening to the water in the bathroom, various possibilities flashing through my mind. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe it was just an ordinary gift. Maybe that S had another explanation. But no matter how I tried to reassure myself, that uneasy feeling still followed me like a shadow. In the weeks that followed, Sophie's overtime and girls' nights became more and more frequent. Once, I tried calling her friend Lily Chun to ask if she had seen Sophie, and Lily Chun said, puzzled, that they hadn't seen each other in a long time. When I mentioned it to Sophie, she flinched, then explained that she had actually gone to meet a potential client and had made up a lie so I wouldn't worry. I accepted her explanation, but my inner doubts only deepened. One night, while Sophie was showering, her phone received a message and the screen lit up. I hadn't intended to pry into her privacy, but the preview of that message was impossible to ignore. It was great seeing you today. I miss you. The sender is work colleague S. Seeing this message, my heart felt tightly gripped by an invisible hand, and my breathing became difficult. S, that mysterious S again. The name Lucas Parker flashed through my mind, but I immediately dismissed that possibility. No, Sophie wouldn't do that to me. There must be another explanation. I didn't tell her I had seen that message. Instead, I chose to trust her, to trust our marriage. Looking back now, how laughable that blind trust was. Sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from enemies, but from the people you trust most. Chapter 4. On a weekend morning, while Sophie was still asleep, I was alone tidying up the clutter in the bedroom. Kneeling by the bed, I reached for an old shoebox under the bed, intending to put it into the storage room. At that moment, my fingers touched an unfamiliar object. When I pulled it out and looked, my heart instantly fell into an ice pit. It was an unopened box of condoms. We hadn't used those things for 2 years because we'd been planning to have a child. I sat frozen on the floor, the little box pinched between my fingers, feeling the world spin. 1,000 possibilities flashed through my mind, but only one explanation made sense. Sophie had someone else outside. "Ethan Johnson, what are you looking for?" Her voice came from the bed, soft with sleepiness. I quickly shoved the condom back under the bed, turned to look at her, trying to hide my shock and pain. "Nothing, just dusting. You keep sleeping." She rubbed her eyes and smiled. "You really are a perfectionist. So diligent even on the weekend." Then she closed her eyes and went back to sleep. I stood there, watching her peaceful sleeping face, my heart like it was being cut by a knife. In that moment, I suddenly remembered all the clues from the past few months. Frequent overtime, mysterious text messages, that unknown gifted scarf, the unfamiliar scent of perfume brought home after drinking, the lies about girlfriends' gatherings. All those fragments finally came together into a clear picture. But I needed concrete evidence. I needed to know the truth. Even if that truth might utterly shatter our marriage, I had to face it. That afternoon, Sophie told me she was going to the studio to handle some work and might be back late. I nodded and pretended everything was normal. After she left, I immediately picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't contacted in a long time. "Long time no see. Need some help?" On the other end of the line, Emma Davis's voice was still bright. Emma Davis was a friend from college and is now a private investigator. We hadn't seen each other in years, but our friendship remained strong. "I need your professional help. It's about my wife." My voice was low and hoarse. "What happened? That doesn't sound good." Her tone immediately turned serious. "I suspect her." I paused. The word lodged in my throat like a sharp shard. "Having an affair?" She spoke the word I couldn't bring myself to say. "Yes, I need to confirm. Give me her basic information and recent itinerary, and I'll help you find out." "But Ethan Johnson," her voice softened. "Are you sure you want to know the truth? Sometimes the truth hurts more than you imagine." "I'm sure," I said firmly. "No matter the outcome, I need to know." After hanging up, I sat on the sofa, staring at the wallpaper we had carefully chosen after our wedding. The minimalist geometric pattern Sophie loved most. Our wedding photo hangs on the wall. She smiles in it so brightly, so genuinely. At that time, our love was still pure, unshadowed by anything. Now, has that purity been defiled? I don't dare imagine it, yet I must confront that possibility. Chapter 5. Emma Davis's investigation moved quickly. She sent the first batch of photos. In the photos, Sophie and Lucas Parker were having an intimate conversation in a cafe. They sat very close, Lucas Parker's hand resting on Sophie's, and both wore affectionate expressions. Seeing these photos, my heart felt as if gripped tightly by an invisible hand, and my breathing became difficult. But that still wasn't conclusive evidence, I told myself. Maybe it was just ordinary communication between friends. I needed more information. Emma Davis then told me that, according to her investigation, Lucas Parker was not only Sophie's college classmate, but also her first boyfriend. They dated for 2 years during college and later broke up when Lucas Parker went abroad for further studies. That information hit me like a heavy blow to the heart. Sophie never mentioned to me that she had a first boyfriend named Lucas Parker, nor did she ever say that he was the college friend she referred to. Lucas Parker returned to the country to start a business 6 months ago, founded a tech company, Parker Technologies, and it's doing well, Emma Davis told me on the phone. From what I understand, they reunited at an alumni gathering and have been in frequent contact since then. "Are you sure they're that kind of relationship now?" I asked with difficulty. "I still need to gather more evidence. but the current situation doesn't look good, Emma Davis said sympathetically. Ethan Johnson, whatever the outcome, remember you still have friends. Thank you. I forced those 2 words out. Over the next few days, I tried to act as if everything was normal. But every time I saw Sophie smiling at her phone or saying she was going out to meet a client, my heart ached as if pricked by needles. I began to notice more details. She often changed into new clothes, bought new perfume. Her working hours became irregular. Sometimes she came home late at night. Sometimes she suddenly had urgent work on weekends. What hurt me most was that the way she looked at me lacked that familiar warmth, replaced by a kind of distance I had never seen before. A week later, Emma Davis sent a second batch of evidence, including photos of Sophie and Lucas Parker at the entrance of a luxury hotel. That day, Sophie told me she was going to Chicago to attend a 2-day illustration exhibition. The date on the photos was exactly the first day she left, and the location was clearly not Chicago, but a luxury hotel in our city. Seeing those photos, I felt the world spin and had to brace myself against the wall to stay standing. My wife, the person I loved most, was deceiving me, betraying me. That kind of pain cannot be described in words, as if someone were cutting my heart inch by inch with a rusty knife. Are you okay? Emma Davis asked anxiously. Do you want me to come over and keep you company? No, I need to be alone to calm down. I answered hoarsely. After hanging up, I collapsed on the living room floor, letting the tears fall silently. I remember our first date, when I nervously gave her a rose. I remember when I proposed to her, the tears glistening in her eyes. I remember every morning and evening after we married. All these beautiful memories now seem like an illusory dream. I don't know how long I sat there until dusk fell and the room was pitch black. I finally stood up, wiped my tears, and took a deep breath. I decided to give myself and her another chance. I wanted to confirm it myself. Maybe there was another explanation. Chapter 6. Sophie told me she was going to attend a dinner with an important client that night and might be home very late. I nodded and said I understood. Then after she left, I messaged Emma Davis to ask if she could help me follow Sophie. Not today. I have a case to handle, Emma Davis replied. But I can lend you some equipment if you want to do it yourself. That afternoon, I went to Emma Davis's office. She gave me a miniature recording device and some basic tracking tips. Be careful. Don't get caught, she warned me. If you confirm it, don't do anything stupid. I nodded gratefully, then followed in the direction Sophie had left. I'm not a professional detective, but my knowledge of my wife gives me a certain advantage. I guess she might go to that Japanese restaurant she often mentioned. Lucas Parker had mentioned at the party that he really liked the food there. Sure enough, when I arrived at that Japanese restaurant, I saw Sophie and Lucas Parker sitting in the corner through the window. They were sitting facing each other. Lucas Parker would occasionally reach out to touch Sophie's hand, and she not only didn't pull away but smiled in return. That kind of intimacy was by no means what ordinary friends would show. I didn't storm in to confront them. Instead, I chose a hidden spot, put on my headphones, adjusted the directional microphone Emma Davis had given me, and tried to capture their conversation. Have you really thought it through? Lucas Parker's voice came through the headset. I know it's hard, but we can't keep going on like this. I know, I just need some time. Sophie's voice sounded both confused and pained. This isn't fair to Ethan Johnson. What about you? What about us? Lucas Parker's voice became agitated. Who will give us back the years we lost? Sophie, I never stopped loving you. Even during those years abroad, you were all I thought about. Now that I'm back, shouldn't we give each other a chance? After a moment of silence, Sophie whispered, I know, I never really forgot you either. But marriage is a lifelong commitment. I can't just... That was a decision made when you didn't know I would come back. Lucas Parker interrupted her. Things are different now. We can start over, like we once promised. My heart broke at that moment. Sophie, my wife, admitted she had never forgotten Lucas Parker, and I seemed to be just a passerby in her life, a substitute. I couldn't keep listening, took off my headphones, and stumbled away. Back home, I felt like an empty shell, mechanically walking into the bathroom and looking at my haggard face in the mirror. Is this what betrayal feels like? So kvinvel, so desprit, so powerless. On the bathroom mirror was the note Sophie had left me, saying, Hi. Seeing those two characters, I was suddenly overcome with a surge of intense rage. This is a lie, all of a lie. Her love, her promises, her vows, all of it was false. I slammed into the mirror. Glass shards cut my hand, and blood dripped from my fingers. But this physical pain was negligible compared to the agony in my heart. That night, when Sophie came home and saw the wounds on my hand, she asked in a panic what had happened. I made up a lie, saying I had hurt myself accidentally at work. She carefully bandaged me, concern showing in her eyes, and I could only bitterly wonder whether that concern also carried guilt. That night, lying in bed and feeling Sophie's sleeping breath beside me, I made a decision. I would not give up on our marriage lightly, but I would never continue to be kept in the dark. I would find out the whole truth of what had happened, and then decide what to do next. Chapter 7. The next week, my life turned into a carefully staged performance. On the surface, I was still the foolish husband who loved his wife and knew nothing. Inwardly, I was collecting every detail, piecing together the full picture of Sophie and Lucas Parker's relationship. Emma Davis continued her investigation, providing me with more evidence. According to her findings, Sophie and Lucas Parker's relationship had lasted at least 4 months, beginning with that college reunion. This meant that when Sophie introduced Lucas Parker to me, they might already have rebuilt some kind of relationship. The thought made me feel nauseous. I began secretly checking Sophie's phone and computer. Although it made me feel ashamed, I needed to know the whole truth. In her laptop, I found an encrypted folder. After several attempts, I used a password combination she often used and successfully unlocked it. Inside was her private diary. I knew that reading someone's diary was an invasion of privacy, but in this case, I no longer cared about such moral constraints. I needed to understand why our marriage had come to this. The diary's contents tore my heart to pieces. The moment I saw Lucas Parker, all the feelings came rushing back. After so many years, he was still the one who could make my heart race. I know it's wrong. I'm already married, but I can't control my feelings. Today I met Lucas Parker at a cafe. He said he never stopped loving me, even during those years abroad. When he spoke of the promise we once made, I cried. We had vowed that no matter what happened, one day we would meet again and never be apart. Ethan Johnson is a good husband, gentle, considerate, dependable. I know betraying him is wrong, but faced with Lucas Parker, I can't find a reason to refuse. The feeling is so intense, so real, as if it were fate. Last night, when I was with Lucas Parker, I almost told him I was willing to start over with him. But when I came home and saw Ethan Johnson's figure in the kitchen preparing a late-night snack for me, I was overwhelmed with guilt. What should I do? I love Lucas Parker, but I don't want to hurt Ethan Johnson either. Chapter 8. Reading these words, I felt the world spin. Sophie made it clear she loves Lucas Parker, and I am merely a good husband, someone she doesn't want to hurt but doesn't love enough. 3 years of marriage meant less to her than a teenage affair. I shut my laptop, leaned back in my chair, and felt like I couldn't breathe. The sky outside was overcast, much like the mood inside me at that moment. I had never imagined I would come to understand my wife's inner world this way. The feeling she should have told me herself, which I learned by secretly reading her diary. I picked up my phone and saw that Emma Davis had just sent a message. There's news. Call me if you're available. I went out to the balcony and dialed her number. Any findings? I tried to keep my voice steady. According to my investigation, Emma Davis's voice was serious and professional. Lucas Parker and Sophie didn't just reconnect recently. They had been in contact during Lucas Parker's time abroad, though not frequently. After Lucas Parker returned to the country, their contact became closer. You mean Sophie has known about Lucas Parker all along? I felt a sting. Yes, and according to information I obtained from inside Lucas Parker's company, Parker Technologies, one of the main reasons he returned to the country was her. He told close friends that he was coming back to reclaim his first love. This information was like a sharp knife, driving straight into my heart. Lucas Parker's return was premeditated, and Sophie, my wife, might also have been anticipating this moment. There's one more thing. Emma Davis hesitated. During my investigation into Lucas Parker, I found that his company, Parker Technologies, has some issues. They have engaged in some gray area practices in product development and financial operations. If investigated further, violations, or even illegal activities might be uncovered. This might be useful to you. I was silent for a moment, then said, organize these details thoroughly and send them to me. Ethan Johnson, Emma Davis's voice softened. What are you going to do? I'm not sure yet. That was the truth. My emotions were too tangled to make a rational decision. Whatever you decide, remember to protect yourself. If you need someone to talk to, I'm always here. After hanging up, I stood on the balcony, looking at the city's outline in the distance. The sky began to drizzle. The fine rain blurred the distant scene, just like my unclear view of the future. Has 3 years of marriage been betrayed like this? Our once sworn oaths, her promises to me, my wholehearted devotion to her, everything has turned into a bubble. And those moments of intimacy I thought belonged only to us now seem, in retrospect, merely passing scenery in her life. The sound of the door opening came from behind. Sophie was back. I quickly composed my expression and turned to face her. What are you doing standing on the balcony? She asked, her tone carrying everyday affection. It's raining outside. Be careful you don't catch a cold. Just looking at the view, thinking. I forced a smile. She came over, stood beside me, and followed my gaze to the distance. What are you so lost in thought about? I'm thinking about how many things in life we can actually control, I said softly. Sometimes, even what we think we're holding tight will slip away unnoticed. She turned to look at me, a hint of puzzlement in her eyes. Why are you suddenly saying this? Having trouble at work? I shook my head. No, just thinking out loud. She seemed unaware of the meaning behind my words and simply leaned lightly on my shoulder. Don't overthink it. I'm here. I didn't reply. I just watched the raindrops leave trails on the window. Her words, which once brought me endless comfort, now only send a piercing chill through me. Chapter 9. On a weekend morning, Sophie told me she was going to the studio to sort through some materials and might be there the whole day. I nodded and said I would stay home to work on some design drawings. After she left, I sat in the study, thinking about the next course of action. The investigative report Emma Davis sent about Lucas Parker's company, Parker Technologies, showed they engaged in fraudulent behavior during fundraising and included false elements in their product promotions. Although these were not enough to constitute major illegal acts, if exposed, they would be sufficient to deal a severe blow to his reputation and company. I had been hesitating over whether to use this information. Although I loathed what Lucas Parker had done, I still hoped Sophie would Judong Shangwa Tambat, giving our marriage a chance to be saved. However, each day of waiting and enduring was eroding my will and dignity. In the afternoon, I decided to go to Emma Davis's home to meet and discuss the matter face to face. She lived on the other side of the city in a quiet residential complex. When I arrived, she had already brewed tea and was waiting for me. You look very tired, she said directly, handing me a cup of hot tea. I shook my head. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I hardly recognize myself. That's normal. Anyone would react that way in this situation, she comforted. So, have you decided what to do? I took a deep breath. I want to talk to Sophie, give her a chance to be honest. If she's willing to end things with Lucas Parker, maybe we can still salvage this. Emma Davis frowned. Are you sure? Even if she confesses and apologizes, can you really let this go completely? Once trust is broken, it's hard to rebuild. I don't know, I admitted, but I love her, and at least I want to give this marriage a chance. And Lucas Parker? Let it go just like that. I was silent for a moment. If Sophie chooses to start over with me, then yes, I can let him go. But if she chooses him, my voice hardened, then I'll make them both pay. Emma Davis nodded, offering no judgment on my decision. I understand, but whatever the outcome, don't let hatred consume you. Just then, my phone rang. It was Sophie. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Ethan Johnson, where are you? I can't find you at home. Her voice sounded a little anxious. I went out to meet a friend. I answered casually. What is it? Nothing, it's just, she paused. I want to talk to you. My heart raced. Is she going to confess? All right, I'll be back right away. I hung up the phone and looked at Emma Davis. She said she wants to talk to me. Maybe this is a turning point. Emma Davis encouraged. Whatever happens, remember I'm here for you. On the way home, I tried to keep myself calm. Maybe Sophie had a change of heart and decided to end this mistaken relationship. Maybe she's just looking for an excuse to continue her lies. Or even, in the worst case, she has already made a choice to divorce me. Whatever the case, I must face it. Marriage is not a one-person solo. If her heart is elsewhere, then no matter how much I love her, I cannot keep her. It was late when I got home. I pushed open the door. The room was dim, with only a candle burning on the dining table. Sophie was wearing a dress I really like, standing there with a smile, but a trace of unease in her eyes. Why so formal? I tried to keep my tone light. Today is the 7th anniversary of us meeting, she said softly. Did you forget? I was stunned. Indeed, 7 years ago today, we first met at a friend's gathering. In past years, we always celebrated this day, but this year, for various reasons, I completely forgot. Sorry, I apologized honestly. Work has been too busy lately, I forgot. It's okay. She walked over and hugged me gently. I've prepared dinner. Let's have a good talk. We sat down. Sophie poured red wine, then carefully watched my reaction. You seemed off lately, she began. Is it too much work stress? I looked into her eyes, the pair I once loved deeply, now filled with emotions I couldn't decipher. It's not because of work, I said slowly. Sophie, there are some questions I want to ask you. Her body stiffened slightly, but she quickly relaxed back to normal. What questions? You've been going out a lot lately. Is it really all for work? Her eyes flickered for a moment, then she laughed and said, Of course it's for work. What else could it be? No other reason. I pressed. No one else. Her smile froze, her face paling. Are you suspecting I'm cheating? I didn't answer directly. Instead, I took the photos Emma Davis had given me out of my pocket and placed them on the table. In the photo, Sophie and Lucas Parker are embracing intimately in front of the hotel. Sophie looked at the photo. Her complexion went from pale to flushed, then to a kind of near-desperate wanness. Did you follow me? Her voice turned sharp. I just want to know the truth, I said calmly. Sophie, tell me, what exactly is your relationship with Lucas Parker? She was silent for a long time, tears slowly sliding down her cheeks. Finally, she spoke tremblingly. He and we dated before, during college. I know, your first love, I said. But what about now? She looked up, eyes full of struggle and pain. Ethan Johnson, I'm very confused. I don't know what to do. After Lucas Parker came back, all the memories and feelings returned. I think I may have never truly forgotten him. Her words were like a sharp knife, piercing straight into my heart. So, you've been deceiving me all along? Those words saying you loved me, those promises were all lies. No, she hurriedly explained. I love you too, I really do. But Lucas Parker, he's different. There's an unexplainable connection between us, like fate. I snorted coldly. Fate? So you cheated because of destiny? I didn't cheat, she said emotionally. We were just chatting, catching up, at a hotel. I cut her off, then took another photo from my pocket showing them entering the hotel. Sophie, stop lying. Your relationship was far more than just chatting. She broke down crying. I'm sorry, Ethan Johnson, I'm really sorry. I didn't want to hurt you, but after Lucas Parker came back, I found I couldn't resist. We had so many wonderful memories. He understands every thought of mine, every dream. And I don't. I felt a surge of anger. For the past 3 years, everything I've done was to make you happy. I know every expression of yours, every habit, every preference. I thought we were soulmates, but in your eyes I can never measure up to a college boyfriend. It's not like that. She shook her head. I really love you, but what? I pressed. But you love him more? But you want to be with him? She was silent. That silence hurt more than any words. Finally, she whispered, I don't know, I really don't know. I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. Sophie, I'll give you a choice. If you're willing to end your relationship with Lucas Parker, we could try to start over. But if you choose him, then this is the end for us. She looked up, tears filling her eyes. Can you forgive me? I don't know, I answered honestly, but I'm willing to try. She was silent for a long time, then finally said softly, Give me some time, okay? I need to think it through. I stood up and looked down at her. You have 3 days to decide. After 3 days, if I don't have your answer, I'll make the decision myself. With that, I turned and walked toward the bedroom, leaving her alone at the dining table. That night, I slept in the guest room, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. I didn't know what choice she would make, but I knew that whatever the outcome, our marriage would never be the same. Chapter 10, Sophie's time to think, was agonizing. For 3 days, she spent almost the entire time in the studio and rarely spoke after returning home. As for me, though outwardly calm, inside I was undergoing fierce turmoil. On the one hand, I loved her deeply and hoped she would choose our marriage. On the other hand, her betrayal and hesitation had already planted the seeds of hatred in my heart. On the last night, Sophie came home earlier than usual. She sat on the living room sofa, waiting for my return. The moment I stepped through the door, I felt the atmosphere was different. "I've made up my mind," she said directly, her voice low but firm. "I choose our marriage. I will cut off all contact with Lucas Parker." I stood there, not responding immediately. This was the answer I had been hoping for. Yet when I heard it, I felt an indescribable emptiness. "Why?" I asked. "Why choose me over him?" She took a deep breath. "Because I realized that true love isn't the kind of passion and impulse, but day after day companionship and understanding. Lucas Parker represents the past, an impossible fantasy. And you, Ethan Johnson, you are my present and my future." "Are you sure?" I asked. "You won't regret this decision." "I'm sure," she said, coming over and trying to take my hand. "I've already told Lucas Parker that it's over. Ethan Johnson, please give me a chance to make up for my mistake." I didn't pull away from her touch, but I didn't take her hand either. Rebuilding trust takes time, Sophie. I don't know if I can completely let this go, but I'm willing to try. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you. I'll do everything I can to win back your trust." In the following days, Sophie did make an effort to repair our relationship. She canceled all unnecessary outings and brought all her work home. She proactively shared her schedule and even gave me permission to check her phone and computer. She tried to make the dishes I like and watch movies with me, just like when we had just gotten married. On the surface, I accepted her apology and change, but deep down, the feeling of being betrayed still wouldn't go away. Whenever I thought of her with Lucas Parker, or her diary's obsession with her first love, an uncontrollable surge of anger and jealousy welled up in me. I began to mix baking soda into undercooked meat to give her stomach aches. I quietly adjusted the air conditioner temperature and took her blanket away while she slept, causing her to catch a cold. I added an irritating substance to her facial cleanser so her skin would have an allergic reaction. These small actions wouldn't cause serious harm, but they were enough to make her uncomfortable. I know these behaviors are childish and despicable, but I can't control myself. I need a way to vent my pain and make her feel some of it too. At the same time, I hadn't given up investigating Lucas Parker. Emma Davis continued to provide me with information about his company, Parker Technologies, and I began gathering evidence that could strike at him. With the help of some industry friends, I obtained more detailed materials about his company's irregular operations. I met Emma Davis at a cafe to exchange the latest intelligence. "Lucas Parker's company's financing has problems," she said in a low voice, handing me a stack of documents. "He exaggerated the product's performance and market feedback, deceiving investors. If this information is exposed, his company will fall in a serious crisis." I flipped through the documents, feeling a cold sense of satisfaction. "Is the evidence conclusive?" "It's very conclusive. I've already cross-checked it." I nodded and put the files away. "Thank you, Emma Davis. This will be very useful to me." She watched me with concern. "Ethan Johnson, what are you planning to do?" "Revenge may bring brief satisfaction, but it won't truly heal your pain." "I know," I said wryly, "but some debts have to be settled." On the way home, I thought about how to use this information. I could anonymously report Lucas Parker's company and have the regulators launch an investigation. I could provide the evidence to the media and expose his fraudulent behavior to the public. I could even contact his investors and let them know what kind of swindler their money was going to. But I decided to wait and see first. Although Sophie claimed she had cut off all contact with Lucas Parker, I didn't entirely believe her. With Emma Davis's help, I installed a tracking app on Sophie's phone to monitor her location and call logs. This behavior made me feel ashamed, but I told myself it was a necessary precaution. A week later, my suspicions were confirmed. The tracking software showed Sophie taking a long detour on her way to the studio, going to an unfamiliar address. By checking, I found it was an unremarkable cafe located in the old district on the outskirts of the city. That night, Sophie came home 2 hours later than usual. She explained that she had run into problems at work and needed to revise some designs. I nodded, pretending to believe her explanation, but inside, I already knew she had deceived me again. I took a day off and went to that cafe in person. Sure enough, there I saw Sophie and Lucas Parker. They sat in the corner, chatting happily. Lucas Parker would occasionally take Sophie's hand, and she did not pull away. At that moment, the last thread of hope in my heart snapped. Sophie's repentance, her change, her promises, they were all lies. She had never truly chosen me, nor had she intended to end her relationship with Lucas Parker. I quietly left the cafe, went back home, and began preparing my plan for revenge. Since Sophie had already made her choice, I had to make mine too. I was going to make them pay for betraying me, especially Lucas Parker, the man who took my wife. Chapter 11. Late at night, I sat at my computer and wrote an anonymous email attaching evidence of fraud by Lucas Parker's company, Parker Technologies, and sent it to several major financial media outlets. This was only the first step of the plan. The next morning, I contacted several of Lucas Parker's major investors again, posing as a conscientious employee inside the company, and provided similar information. Within 3 days, Lucas Parker's company was plunged into crisis. Multiple media outlets reported that the company was suspected of fraud. Investors began to pull out, and the company's stock price plummeted. Meanwhile, through industry connections, I ensured that Lucas Parker's competitors receive information about the technical flaws in their products, further undermining his market position. Sophie seemed completely unaware of all this. She continued her double life, outwardly a repentant wife, while secretly still associating with Lucas Parker. I watched coldly from the sidelines, waiting for the perfect moment. A week later, Lucas Parker's company fell into a deeper crisis as regulators began investigating their violations. I eavesdropped on a call between Sophie and Lucas Parker. He sounded tired and anxious. "The company's situation is not good," he told Sophie. "I don't know who's sabotaging us behind the scenes, but our investors are pulling out and the media is all over it. Is there anything I can do to help?" Sophie asked with concern. "Not for now," Lucas Parker sighed. "I just wanted to hear your voice, to get some comfort. I really wish I could be by your side." "It won't be long," Lucas Parker said. "Once the storm passes, we can be together." Hearing those words, a cold wave of anger washed over me. They were actually plotting a future behind my back, as if I were an obstacle to be discarded at any time. This only strengthened my resolve for revenge. I found an excuse to go home early, and, just as I suspected, Sophie wasn't there. I used the opportunity to install several hidden cameras and recording devices in the house. If she was going to keep deceiving me, I would gather enough evidence. A few days later, an opportunity arrived. Sophie told me she was going out of town to attend a design exhibition and would need 3 days. On the surface, I expressed understanding and support, but in reality, I knew this was the time she planned to spend with Lucas Parker. On the second day after she left, I contacted a lawyer with extensive experience in family law and began preparing the divorce papers. At the same time, I handed over more of Lucas Parker Company's dirty secrets to the media and regulators, ensuring his career would completely collapse. My plan proceeded smoothly until Emma Davis raised a question that unsettled me. "Ethan Johnson, have you ever thought," she said during one of our meetings, "will doing this really make you feel any better? Revenge may give a momentary thrill, but then what?" I was silent for a moment. "I don't know, but I know that if I don't do this, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. They think I'm an easy, foolish target, that they can toy with my feelings and trample my dignity. I want them to know that such behavior comes at a price." Emma Davis sighed. "I understand how you feel, but remember, don't let hatred consume you." Her words made me think for a long time. Yes, revenge won't truly heal my wounds, but at least it can show the world that betrayal comes with a price. And for Sophie and Lucas Parker, the most painful punishment would be losing what they value most. For Sophie, it was honor and social status. For Lucas Parker, it was his career and success. When Sophie's business trip ended and she returned, I decided it was time for the final showdown. My investigation revealed that Sophie and Lucas Parker planned to meet again next week while I was away on a business trip. This time, I would shatter their illusions and make them face the cruelty of reality. Chapter 12, I pretended I had to go on a business trip, telling Sophie I needed to travel out of town to attend an important design conference lasting 3 days. She showed appropriate regret, but I could see a hint of relief in her eyes. "I'll miss you," she said softly, helping me pack. "I'll miss you too," I replied with a smile, though I sneered inwardly. The morning I left home, I did drive away, but I didn't go to the station. Instead, I drove to a hotel on the far side of town to lay low for a while. Through the surveillance devices installed in the house, I saw that Sophie, not long after I left, began to bustle about, cleaning the rooms, changing the sheets, even buying new candles and red wine. It seemed she planned to host her lover in our home. This desecration filled me with a fierce rage, but I held myself back. "Calm down, Ethan Johnson. Wait a little longer. The time is about to ripen." That night, the surveillance showed Lucas Parker came to my house. He brought flowers and gifts, and Sophie welcomed him warmly. They drank and chatted in the living room, intimate and close, as if this were their home. Later, they moved to the bedroom, and I turned off the monitor. I didn't want to see any more. That was enough. I already had all the evidence I needed. The next morning, after Lucas Parker left, I continued watching Sophie's every move through the monitor. She seemed in a good mood, humming as she tidied the room, erasing every trace that Lucas Parker had been there. She even sent me a message asking if everything was going well for me away from home. I replied that everything was going smoothly and that I missed her. This pretense was about to end. I would no longer have to endure the insult of that lie. I decided to return home a day early to give Sophie a surprise. Before this, I contacted Emma Davis and asked her to do me one last favor. "I need you, posing as a journalist, to get in touch with several of Lucas Parker's key business partners and ask about allegations of fraud at his company." I explained the plan to her. The aim is to let them know that the media is preparing an in-depth expose on Lucas Parker. That will make them more cautious and might lead them to consider cutting ties with Lucas Parker. Emma Davis understood my intent. "Exactly. I want Lucas Parker to already be on the brink of professional collapse by the time I confront Sophie." Emma Davis was silent for a moment, then asked softly, "Do you really have to take it this far?" "Yes," I answered firmly. "They should pay for their choices." On the third night, I returned home early. Sophie's car was parked in the yard, and the lights inside the house were bright. I took a deep breath, steadied my emotions, and then opened the door. Sophie was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Seeing me come back, she was clearly surprised. "Ethan Johnson, why are you back early?" "The networking event ended early," I said with a smile. "I wanted to surprise you." She forced a smile. "Well, that's wonderful. I'm making dinner. Are you hungry?" "I'm starving," I said as I walked into the kitchen, wrapping my arms around her from behind and feeling the stiffness in her body. "What delicious thing did you make?" "Just ordinary home cooking," she said, her voice a little tense. I let her go and walked to the refrigerator. "Do we have any wine left?" "Yes, it's in the liquor cabinet." I took out a bottle of red wine and noticed it was a new one, not the open bottle that had been there before I left. She had already erased any traces of having drunk with Lucas Parker. "Is today some kind of special day?" I asked, feigning casualness. "Why are you making dinner so formally?" "Nothing," she answered quickly. "I just wanted you to come back for a good meal." During dinner, we talked about some everyday things. She seemed to relax gradually, thinking the crisis had passed. After the meal, I suggested we go to the balcony for coffee. The night breeze gently brushed our faces, and the city lights twinkled in the distance, forming a beautiful scene. "Sophie," I began, my voice calm, "how long have we been married?" 3 years and 4 months. She answered without hesitation. 3 years and 4 months, I repeated. Doesn't sound long, but it's not short either. During that time, I thought I knew you, and you knew me. She seemed to sense something and looked at me warily. Why bring this up all of a sudden? I didn't answer directly. Instead, I took a photo out of my pocket and handed it to her. The photo shows her and Lucas Parker embracing in front of our house. It was taken just 2 days ago. Her face instantly went pale, her hand trembling slightly. What is this?" You know what this is, I said calmly. Just like you know what you're doing. Ethan Johnson, I can explain. No need. I cut her off. I already know everything. Your relationship with Lucas Parker, your lies, your betrayal. Her tears began to fall. Ethan Johnson, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I know I'm wrong, but I swear, I'll end things with him. We can start over. Like you promised last time? I sneered. Sophie, you don't have a chance anymore. I took a stack of documents from my bag and set them in front of her. This is the divorce agreement. I've already signed my portion. Because of your betrayal, I will not give you any share of the property, but I also will not make your evidence of infidelity public in order to preserve your reputation. She stared at the papers in shock, then looked up at me, her eyes full of fear and despair. Ethan Johnson, you can't do this. We can talk. I can change. Too late, I said coldly. You've already made your choice, and now it's time to face the consequences. What about Lucas Parker? She suddenly asked. Are you going to get revenge on him too? I smiled faintly. You'll know soon enough. Just then, Sophie's phone rang. She hesitated, glanced at me, then picked up the phone. An anxious voice of Lucas Parker came through the receiver. Although I couldn't make out the specifics, from Sophie's expression, it was clear it wasn't good news. After hanging up, she looked even more panicked. Lucas Parker says his company has hit a major problem. All the investors are pulling out, and the media is investigating a large fraud case. Is that so? I pretended to be surprised. Sounds terrible. She stared at me, suddenly realizing something. It was you, wasn't it? You're getting revenge on us. I didn't deny it, only said calmly. Everyone must pay for their choices, Sophie. You chose to betray me. Now it's time to face the consequences. You ruined Lucas Parker's company. Her voice turned sharp. Do you know what that means? Years of his hard work went up in flames. And you ruined our marriage, I shot back. 3 years of my effort and trust trampled underfoot. We're even. Sophie collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I stood up and looked down at her. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll send a lawyer to collect the sign papers. If you refuse to sign, then your scandal with Lucas Parker will be made public. Given your reputation in the illustration industry, that could do serious damage to your career. After speaking, I turned and walked into the bedroom, packing some essentials. Before leaving, I looked back one last time at Sophie, who was sobbing, feeling not a shred of pity. This woman whom I had loved deeply and who had hurt me deeply would no longer be a part of my life from now on. After leaving home, I checked into a hotel and began my new life. The lawyer went to our house as agreed and returned with the divorce agreement signed by Sophie. She raised no objections and requested no additional division of assets. She seemed to have accepted her fate. At the same time, Lucas Parker's company, Parker Technologies, fell into an unprecedented crisis. The media began to extensively report on their fraudulent practices. Regulators launched formal investigations. The stock price plummeted, and investors pulled out en masse. In just 1 week, he went from a respected entrepreneur to a universally despised fraud. I learned through Emma Davis that Lucas Parker tried to contact Sophie for comfort, but she seems to have lost patience with him. When Lucas Parker's career was thriving, she could betray me for the sake of some so-called first love nostalgia. But when he has nothing left, will she choose to leave as well? I don't care about the answer to that question. After the divorce paperwork was completed, I moved into the newly purchased apartment and began to reorganize my life. At work, I took on several major projects and threw all my energy into them, try to soothe the wounds in my heart through busyness. One night 2 weeks later, I received a message from Sophie. Ethan Johnson, I know you might not want to hear my voice, but please give me a chance to explain. I didn't reply. I deleted the message. But she didn't give up there. Over the next few days, Sophie kept sending texts and voice messages, even coming to wait outside my office door. I chose to ignore it all. Her words, which began as explanations and apologies, gradually turned into pleas and despair. Ethan Johnson, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please give me a chance to make up for my mistake. I have completely severed ties with Lucas Parker. I realize the one I've always loved is you. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I only hope you'll give me a chance to express my remorse. I didn't reply to any of those messages. To me, Sophie was already a thing of the past. No matter what she said or did, it couldn't change the fact of her betrayal. A month later, I read in the paper that Lucas Parker's company, Parker Technologies, had officially declared bankruptcy. His fraudulent activities were completely exposed, and he faced multiple legal actions. The successful man who once was full of vigor and took my wife has now been ruined and disgraced. I did not feel the anticipated pleasure and satisfaction. Instead, it was a hollow sense of victory. The taste of revenge, it turned out, was not as sweet as imagined. 2 weeks later, Emma Davis invited me to dinner. At the restaurant, she hesitated as if about to speak, and in the end, she said the news. Sophie jumped. My heart tightened sharply, and the cup nearly slipped from my hand. What? Last night, from the rooftop of the apartment building where she lived. Although she was rushed to the hospital in time, her injuries were too severe. Emma Davis didn't finish, but the meaning was clear. I sat there, unable to process the news for a moment. Sophie dead? The woman who had once shared 3 years of marriage with me. Just like that, gone from the world? Is there a suicide note? I asked with difficulty. Emma Davis nodded and took an envelope out of her bag. The police found this in her apartment. It was written for you. I took the envelope, my hand trembling slightly. The envelope bore Sophie's familiar handwriting, with "For Ethan Johnson" written on it. Do you want to open it now? Emma Davis asked softly. I shook my head and put the envelope into my pocket. Let's talk about it later. After dinner, Emma Davis walked me back to the apartment. Before leaving, she squeezed my hand tightly. No matter what the letter says, remember, this is not your fault. Everyone must take responsibility for their own choices. I nodded gratefully, then walked alone into the empty apartment. Sitting on the sofa, I finally mustered the courage and opened Sophie's will. Dear Ethan Johnson, by the time you read this letter, I will no longer be in this world. First, I want to deeply apologize for the hurt I caused you. I betrayed your love and trust and committed an unforgivable mistake. I've been thinking about why things have come to this. Maybe it's because I never truly grew up and have always been haunted by past fantasies. Maybe it's because I was too selfish and didn't know how to cherish the happiness I already had. Maybe it's because I was too weak to resist temptation. No matter the reason, the end result, that you are hurt, cannot be changed. Lucas Parker has already left this city. His bankruptcy and ruined reputation made it impossible for him to stay. When he needed support the most, I chose to leave him, as selfishly as I once betrayed you. I do not deserve anyone's love. Lately, I've been reflecting on our marriage. Those more than 3 years were the most beautiful memories of my life. Your thoughtfulness, tolerance, and unconditional love. I only now understand how precious they were. Unfortunately, by the time I realized it, it was already too late. I do not ask for your forgiveness, and I know my death may not bring you any consolation. But I hope you can let go of your hatred, continue your life, and find someone truly worthy of your love. I am sorry, Ethan Johnson. Goodbye. Forever loving you. Sophie. After reading the letter, tears flowed from my eyes uncontrollably. Not mourning Sophie's death, but mourning our past love, mourning the beautiful memories that have been destroyed by betrayal and revenge. I thought of Sophie's smile, of the bits and pieces of our time together, of those days that had once been full of love. For a moment, I felt an indescribable emptiness and exhaustion. The end of revenge was, unexpectedly, so desolate. Lucas Parker appeared at Sophie's funeral. He looked haggard, completely stripped of the confident, spirited bearing he once had. I stood at a distance, watching it all with cold eyes. He was like a stray dog at this funeral, chased away but still wanting to come back for one last look at the woman who betrayed me and kept him company. The moment I saw him, the anger I had been suppressing these past days flared up again. I would never allow him to be here and defile Sophie's final farewell. I walked up to him and said coldly, "You have no right to be here." Lucas Parker looked up at me, his eyes full of sorrow and hatred. "It was you," he said hoarsely. "You drove Sophie to her death." "Was I?" I sneered. "Wasn't it you who seduced her into betraying her marriage? Wasn't it you who claimed to love her and then abandoned her when she needed you most?" "I never abandoned her," he protested angrily. "She refused to see me after the accident at my company." Those words confirmed my suspicion. Sophie had ultimately abandoned the fallen Lucas Parker. I nearly laughed out loud at it. One absurd, tragic love story. Then you have even less right to stand here, I said coldly. Get out. A flash of anger crossed Lucas Parker's eyes, then shifted into a nearly despairing calm. Ethan Johnson, you won. You destroyed my company, took everything from me. But do you know? From the very beginning, the one who lost was you. Sophie never loved you. The person she could never let go of was me. His words were like a sharp knife, stabbing into my heart. But I wouldn't let him see my pain. Is that so? Then why did she choose to leave you when you had nothing? That question clearly struck his soft spot. A flicker of pain crossed his face. I don't believe it. She must have been threatened or pressured by you. Believe whatever you want, I said contemptuously. But the fact is, when you needed her, she abandoned you, just as she betrayed me. This is the true face of your so-called fated love. Lucas Parker clenched his fists as if he wanted to attack me, but in the end he restrained himself. You think it ends like this? You think revenge will bring you happiness? No, I answered candidly, but at least I can make you pay the price you deserve. Now, please leave. This is your last warning. Lucas Parker glanced at me, then at Sophie's photo, and finally turned and walked away. I stood where I was, feeling a strange emptiness. On the surface, I had won this confrontation, but deep down, I knew we were all losers. After the funeral, I went alone to Sophie's grave. No flowers, no tears, only endless silence. I didn't know what to say, whether to condemn her betrayal or to grieve her death. In the end, I just stood there for a while, then turned and walked away. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. Ethan Johnson, this is Lucas Parker. I think you know, Sophie's death won't be the end. Our scores are not settled. I sneered and deleted the message. Lucas Parker had nothing left. This threat was nothing but a dying struggle. Yet for some reason, an inexplicable unease still lingered in my chest. A few days later, I received a package in my office containing a stack of photos of Sophie and me, as well as pictures from our wedding. In the photos, our faces had been slashed, red ink covering them like blood. There was also a note in the package. How does revenge taste? I immediately knew this was the work of Lucas Parker. He wanted to scare me this way, to make me taste the despair and loss he had gone through. The laughable thing was, he didn't know I had already experienced that feeling the moment I discovered Sophie had betrayed me. I packed away the photos and the note, then called Emma Davis and told her about Lucas Parker's behavior. Should I call the police? She asked, worried. No need, I replied. He's just trying to scare me. A man who has lost everything can no longer pose a real threat. Better safe than sorry, Emma Davis suggested. People like him may act extremely when they have nowhere left to turn. I thanked her for her concern, but I didn't take Lucas Parker's threat too seriously. To me, this revenge was already over. Lucas Parker's struggles were nothing more than the wail of a defeated man. However, I underestimated the degree of madness a person who has lost everything can reach. 1 week later, in the dead of night, I was awakened by a rapid knocking at the door. At first I thought it was my imagination, but the knocking grew louder, accompanied by Lucas Parker's voice. Ethan Johnson, I know you're in there. Open up. I rose alertly and, through the peephole, saw Lucas Parker standing outside the door, disheveled, eyes bloodshot, obviously drunk. I took out my phone, preparing to call the police. Ethan Johnson. Lucas Parker's voice was hoarse and angry. You ruined everything for me. You ruined Sophie. You must pay. I did not respond, quietly waiting. Lucas Parker kept pounding on the door, his voice growing more agitated. You think it's over? No, this is only the beginning. I will make you experience true suffering, just like you did to me. At that moment, I heard a faint metallic clink, then the sound of some liquid being splashed on the door, followed by the click of a lighter. Fire. He's setting the place on fire. I immediately dialed 911 and quickly moved to the balcony to see if I could escape from there. Just as I was about to move, a commotion erupted outside the gate, followed by the security guard's shouts and Lucas Parker's curses. A few minutes later, sirens wailed and the police arrived, subduing Lucas Parker. I stepped out of the apartment and saw Lucas Parker pinned to the ground, his hands secured in handcuffs. When he saw me, his eyes were filled with a mad hatred. Ethan Johnson, this isn't over. You'll regret it. You'll regret it, he shouted hysterically as the police dragged him away. According to police investigation, Lucas Parker did indeed bring gasoline with the intent to set a fire. If the security guard hadn't discovered it in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Lucas Parker was arrested for attempted murder and was ultimately sentenced to 10 years in prison. Watching Lucas Parker being led away, I felt an indescribable emotion. This revenge finally ended in such a dramatic way. But the emptiness in my heart didn't disappear. If anything, it grew stronger. In the days that followed, I lived alone, focused on my work, trying to rebuild my world. Lucas Parker is imprisoned, Sophie has passed away, and this nightmarish ordeal has finally come to an end. But sometimes late at night, I still think back to that time. I think of Sophie's smile, of the happiness we once had, and of the pain brought by betrayal. I no longer feel satisfied by revenge, nor do I feel guilty about Sophie's death. Those feelings, as time passed, gradually became distant and blurred. 6 months later, I moved away from that city to a place where no one knew me, to start over. In a new city, I opened my own design firm, focusing on the architectural design I loved. Work became the center of my life, and also my way of healing the wounds. Sometimes, Emma Davis comes to see me, bringing news from the past. Lucas Parker is behaving well in prison. He's paying the price he must. Sophie's parents have slowly recovered from the shock of losing their daughter. Our mutual friends have each continued with their own lives. Hearing this, I felt a transcendent calm, as if the people and events that once tore my heart apart had now become someone else's story. Day by day, the days passed, and the wounds slowly healed. I began accepting some social invitations, meeting new friends, and even dating occasionally. Although I wasn't yet ready to invest in a new relationship, at least I was willing to give life a chance. Sophie and Lucas Parker once left deep scars on my heart, but time will eventually heal everything. Revenge did not bring the imagined satisfaction, but a deeper emptiness. True liberation comes from letting go and moving forward.